with an ad valorem tax rate of 58.5 cents per 100. Our valuation after the 2015 reval was $1,017,378,230. We are only able to budget at 95.86% collection rate as per general statutes. That was our collection rate for the 13-14 tax year. Just as an aside, our collection rate for this year so far is at 96.85%. We are higher this year than last year. Our revenue neutral rate for the reval was 52.93 cents per 100. The tax rate this past year that we're closing out was at 46, which was at 5.5 cents above revenue neutral. The 58.5 is at 5.5 cents above revenue neutral. Our total budget for the general fund is $15,217,488. We also had some special revenue funds that added $307,545, as well as a capital project that we're working on for $500,000 for a total budget, including special revenue, capital projects, and general fund of $16,025,033. Just to give a little bit of a perspective, the budget for last year had a 46-cent tax rate. The property tax percentage that made up the budget was at 41%. The property tax percentage that is will be collected will comprise 39% of our budget. And I guess we are ready to take a vote on it. There's no questions from the board.
I guess my question is, how do you decide which organizations get the contributions, and do they change up much? Because I'm seeing some that are on there, continuously. I'm not saying that they're not worthy, but I'm just wondering, do you have some kind of a matrix of factors, that make certain charitable organizations or nonprofits eligible over another, or is it just pretty much who comes up and requests the money? So that's my first question. And then really the other one was, I didn't see a lot of changes that were real major from last year. I'm assuming most of them have to do with the insurance increases. There were a few that had larger increases, and I guess I was just wondering if Becky could talk about anything that was really out of the ordinary. There were some that were just pretty large increases, so I thought maybe she could go over some of those. Thank you, appreciate it.
Yeah, to address your questions, as far as the special appropriations are concerned, it is a mix. Some of the appropriations, for instance, as far as the nonprofits are concerned, typically the nonprofits will approach the board with a request And so, you know, anytime, and I've had several call me and say, you know, how do you get on the list, or what's the criteria? The first criteria is to make a request. If it's a new nonprofit, then I will, and there's little history there, then we'll request like an audit report or a financial statement so that we can look at accountability. One of the, you mentioned the mental health, that is a statutory requirement, and Graham County, the minimum statutory requirement that Graham County gives is the $6,000. I think that may change if there would be an area mental health office open here. That's probably a different consideration. JCPC is a nonprofit that's, we're kind of wrapped up with the 7-county area, so we have a portion that their board creates, the state actually creates the allocation, and then they have a JCPC board who actually determines what part Graham County's portion is. Now, most of that $59,997 is actually pass-through money. We get about 90% of that from a grantor agency from the state, and then we match about 10%. And then, as far as the amounts, because we've tried to keep our allocations at least level with prior years, and we try not to cut anything from past years. And I don't know if you recall, but I think about November, the Heritage Festival asked for additional funds, and we made a budget amendment to bring it up to 15 for this year, so that the community could have fireworks and some more activities around the fort. And so the board determined to keep that level, of service. And then major changes. I'm glad you asked that question. For many years, Graham County, due to budget constraints and just hardship financially, the county has finally reached a level of health with the local government commission on their fund balance that is permissible, but because of that and having to build that back up, we've had to put off a lot of projects, and we've had to, especially in our capital outlays. And so about $400,000 of our budget, where you'll see change, is where we're having to finally bite the bullet. For instance, the library is needing about $80,000 in just general repairs. It needs a new roof. We kind of concentrated our focus on this building this past year to try to get things tighter, and we've actually been able to cut the power bill from about $2,500 a month on a good month when the temperature isn't either spiking up or down, to about $850 because we did all of these repairs. Well, the library is in bad need of repair, so we're going to have to put about $80,000 there. We're having to do a lot of work on our sanitation trucks. We've got one Peterbilt that goes to Ball Ground, Georgia every day, and it's bad need of an overhaul. And then there's 2 trailers that actually haul the garbage that if we don't do something really soon, we're looking at leaving a lot of garbage on the highway. So that's going to be about $60,000 to $70,000. We're in the 2nd year of a fleet plan for our law enforcement and our EMS, actually on the 3rd year of our EMS. We're actually in a rotation. We wear an ambulance out in 3 years because we have such long transports. And so we have to buy an ambulance once a year. We have three active ambulances and 1 backup ambulance. Well, the same thing is happening with our fleet for the sheriff's department. And so, last year we were able to purchase some cars The year before, we were able to purchase a couple. We're going to have to get 2 or 3 more. And then I think we'll be kind of finally in a back where we need to be in a rotation. EMS is needing cardiac monitors. That's going to be $100,000. The last ones were purchased in 2004. They're obsolete, and they're going to have to be replaced. And then our health insurance, we saw a 16% increase. To begin with, it was going to be 33% for our group health plan. And we're looking at, if we were able to work out some discounts, and we're looking at having to implement a wellness plan, which is a good thing. We need to do this for the employees so that we can kind of reduce our cost runs for our employees. The sheriff has asked to implement a new pay plan for the deputies and the detention officers, and he's asked for us to take the first bite on that because Greene County has become a training ground for other counties, and we need to be able to give them a semi-competitive wage. We know that the wages we can pay are not going to compete with the other counties, but if we can keep them here, then the cost of turnover is just, we can hopefully reduce that. And then the board is also looking at trying to implement a 2 to 3 year look at just the general county payroll. We've got employees who, I think 3 years ago, the county gave a 25-cent across the board raise, but that's the only raise that's been provided since I came in 2000. I think it was the year before I came, there was some raise. And so the board is trying to get our pay plan put back into place, or actually implemented, so that we can pay a competitive wage and try to help the employees make their grocery bills. We have not been able to take the whole chunk this year. It'll take a 2 to 3 year span of time to try to get the wages at least to where it's a cost of living increase. Because even though Greene County has a low tax base, and we know that, and we're working hard to try to create revenue in every possible scenario, it still actually costs more to buy groceries in Greene County than it does in Cherokee County. And we really, really need to encourage our people to buy locally so that we can increase our sales tax. So that's kind of in a nutshell a lot of the changes that we've had to take on this year. And it's things that we've had to just push off year after year after year, but we know that when buildings begin to crumble and cars are laying on the side of the road and we're losing people because they can get a better wage somewhere else, we know that we have to actually begin to take those bites.
Thank you. Yeah, those you covered most of the ones that I saw that were more an increase.
Sure.
So yeah, you did very well. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Answered it very well.
The health insurance for the 3 employees that are employed by Grant County is $32,144 in the budget that is proposed for 2015-2016. With the town of Robbinsville appropriation of $5,500 and the town of Lake Santilla appropriation of $5,000 and the Grant County appropriation of $16,583, we're still $5,061 short. And so this is what we wanted to ask you tonight, is if you would give us this extra $5,061.
We'll have some discussion on it, but as you heard, we're getting ready to spend roughly $80,000 on the buildings.
Right. I know, I didn't know that, but, which is wonderful, but, I just don't even know anywhere else to get the money cut anywhere else, because there's nothing. Well, there's 3 employees here, then we have the bookmobile on that budget. They're over here 1 week a month, so that's about the only place that can cut it funds to get insurance money.
Thank you. Yeah, we'll get back with you on that.
Okay, thank you.
Let you know something. Yeah, you're back. Bob? Go ahead.
I think it's a sad thing when every year the library has to come in here and try to eke out just enough money to operate. But every year they have to go through the same nut run to try to get just enough to operate. And I know y'all put a lot of work into this. I mean, I'm the first to say it. I question something on here. The last budget that was given out showed the cemetery commission got $179,000 this year. They still had $37,000 in unspent money. They spent $5,000 on the lawnmower last week. So they're plus $32,000 right now. Take out this month's wages, and they're going to be over $25,000 over budget. Tracking okay? Well, I mean, they got 179, and they had $37,000 left, and there's not even 10 days left in the month. They spent $5,000 last week on the lawnmower, so they got 32 left. You take away this week's wages, and we're at the end of the month. So they've got more money than they can use. That's going to roll back into the general fund, right?
They're under budget.
Under budget.
They may not use. They're under budget.
They're under.
Overspending.
Yeah, they have not spent all the money. Okay.
Okay.
Now, look at it this next year. They got $203,000. That's $250,000. You went up on them $24,000 for next year, and they didn't even use all their money this year. What, and the libraries in here begging for $5,000, and you jacked your budget up $24,000. And you didn't even use all the money this year. Now, they did a wonderful job, but something's upside down here. So there's the $5,000. I got to ask this too. Why is the budget in Graham County so much higher than it is in Swain County, when that county's got a heap more people and a lot more acreage, square miles? I can't understand. Now, at my level, I don't know the answer, and I don't have the means to find it. But y'all are our leaders in this thing, and there's got to be an answer. And I hear people say, we need a new jail. Hey, I'm for it. But the money's got to come from somewhere. And we need this new social DSS or whatever it's called building. I'm all for that too. But the money's not here, folks. And about 5 years ago, there was a project to get a new jail here. And they went to Western Carolina, I believe it was, and they drew up plans for a new jail here, free of charge. They came in and did all that. And there were also people that talked to the U.S. congressman from this district. And he was all behind getting us a grant. And we heard last time a judge within his prerogative. It's not a threat. He's got that power. So, I mean, you got to admit, flushing a toilet by filling up a bucket of water and pouring it in there, that's bad. The point is, where in the devil are we going? There's no plan. There's no 5-year plan for this county, 10-year plan, 20-year plan. There's no projected plan. Everything is a pop-up target. Something gives out, let's patch it. Let's buy that. It's not in the plan. Please, for the sake of the people in this county, get somebody to do a plan for this county where we know where we're going and how we're going to get there. And I'm not criticizing y'all because of this, because you inherited this, every one of you. So people did some work before, and when they went out of office, the next crew that came in here did nothing. And we're on down the line, and here it is 2015, going to 16, and we've got a revenue problem in this county. And just because people ask for money, a lot of money, I'm not talking about $5,500. I'm talking about $20-some-odd thousand. How can you justify this? So please look at this again before you just dump a bunch of money into an account and you get into next June and there's $40,000 left. And if I'm wrong, say I'm wrong. Thanks, folks.
I do want to address the jump in the budget for the cemetery. The biggest reason for the jump is from last year to this year. Last year we budgeted $179,000. This year it's at $196, right at $197. And the reason for that is that our obligation to cover our employees, whether they are working, we have half the staff is part-time, but on the average, when we do our look back for Affordable Care Act, they qualify for health insurance coverage. And so that budget has grown over time, especially since last year, because last year we had to take a bite for the ACA in that budget. We had to cover 3 part-timers with health insurance because their average number of hours exceeded the 29 hours, which is statutory under the federal law. So we were faced with having, we didn't know how, it's hard to get good workers that are willing to do the type of work that's required in the cemetery and to keep a good staff and to comply with federal law. That line item jumped from 12.6 this year we're closing out to 34.5. Now, nobody more than me wants us to be stockpiling money. Savior around the king. And so, yeah, I mean, maybe it's something that we need to sit down with the cemetery board and hammer that a little bit harder, just so that we know that we are providing the service that the citizens seem to want at the least cost, and then we can dedicate funds to other areas where we need it. Because I'm all about, and this board knows it, this board will tell you that I have said in the past at whatever point we get where we need to be in our fund balance, that we can start lowering the tax rate if we absolutely will. And I think we have a lot of things facing us this year that we just put off for a lot of years. The DSS building, if that happens, that's going to be a big chunk up front that will bite for 2 years, and then we'll begin to get 3/4 of that cost back through that 1571 that you hear me talking about a whole lot. And that's federal and state money that'll come back in for that. And you're right, we need to keep up what we got. We've got to do the level best we can to keep up what we have and take good care the linkage, the financial piece of a strategic plan. And it should be how we're implementing that strategic plan. So I hope that I'll be boring everyone to tears for a lot of commissioner meetings going forward about what is our objectives and what is our goals and where do we need to head. And I'm hoping to have a whole lot of public input in that project for folks like you and everybody that's sitting out here, because if the strategic plan does not reflect what the people of this county desire to see, then it's not worth the paper it's written on. So I'm truly hopeful that every person sitting here tonight will be willing when I call you to come to a focus group.
Would you just do a short recap of what your project will entail?
Yes, yes. As part of my master's degree in public administration, my capstone will be creating a plan that will be a strategic plan. The strategic plan for the county will have to come before a communication plan is ever put in place. And my capstone's all about communication plan. But what do I need to communicate? The mission of this county. And how we learn what the mission of this county is. It will come from the people of this county. So this is why I love public hearings, because I get to hear what the people want. And the board gets to hear what the people want. And please do not ever think that anything that's ever said falls on these deaf ears, because they're not deaf. But I get your point, and I understand it.
Anytime you just have a pop-up target and you throw a building up, and they're all over this county that belong to the county, you got a complete individual heating and cooling system. You've got a complete restroom situation. Whereas if you had an admin headquarters building with all of your required offices in it, you have one large central unit. And that's got to be cheap. You have one sewer, water, whatever you want to call it, system. That's got to be more economical. But pop-up targets, I mean, and I'm not getting y'all about this, because you've not been bad about it. But I mean, for the last X number of years, there's no plan. It's, let's build this. Let's build this. There's got to be a plan.
We have a building committee that has been talking about that for about 2 years. And that there would be one central location, and that a DSS building would be a first phase to that central location. And why did we start talking DSS first? Well, because we know that we can get the reimbursement from the federal and state government, and until we know for sure what our long-term financial plan is, we don't want to ask the taxpayers to foot the bill yet for new facilities until we have a plan. There is a plan in the works. And the hope is that we will be able to have, everything in one place, one general area for the taxpayers' convenience and comfort.
Savings.
Right. And to create those efficiencies you're talking about.
About the funding, if the cemetery commission is over $25,000 this year, and you give them an increase of almost that much next year, my math says they're going to almost have a double that amount next year. So, and even if they don't, even if you're back down where they are now,
The overage goes back into the general fund.
Right.
It goes back into the general fund.
yeah, so why is it collected in the first place and allocated out if we know now it's going to go back into the general fund? And the general fund should then cut that $30,000.
Right. It is in the budget. There was one other thing that was budgeted for this year, and it was not required right now, but what size truck is that? The big truck, ton
Yeah.
truck that they use? again, we're getting a lot of mileage and wear and tear on it, and we're looking at sometime down the road, and, you know, only the truck knows when it's gonna lay down, but either, a lot of repair expenses or replacement, and I know that was one thing that was extra in the budget, wasn't there last year, Jay?
You know, I've got no problem with these ambulances, because I'm gonna tell you, God bless those people. And they do a wonderful job, and they first class equipment. If you say you gotta have heart monitors for people, we need some heart monitors. I mean, that's a life and death situation. And those low-end paid people, yeah, I bring them up. But there's gotta be a top, a cap on this budget to keep going up. And that's all I got to say. But except for those people from the library are not asking for themselves. They're asking for the kids and the people in this county so that this library can stay open. So,
Anybody else? Bob?
Thank you, guys. I'm gonna get this little bit of debate. Thank you. I came before the board today, just like everybody else, asking for money. I know it's a hard time, and it's something y'all consider. Town of Robbins been working on a project since 2012. It's an economic project to try to create new jobs in town and in the county. What we've been looking at is just the name of this thing when we applied for the grant was Town of Robbinsville, Main Street, Municipal Facility. But that's not going to be it. We're in the process right now of securing this other grant. We got confirmation last week that we got $330,000 to build this facility. What it's going to do, we can do every function that we want to do. We're going to put a farmer's market in this thing. It's going to be called a multi-use facility. I think it'll be Graham County's multi-use facility. What we're asking is the county to try to jump in and help us a little bit. The thing this thing can grow is, like I say, the farmer's market. We've got 15 hoop houses in Graham County now, greenhouses, I think what they're called tubes. But these folks can grow 5 more months out of the year than you can in a regular garden if they got a place to take their products. This thing will open up the whole county 2 days a week. They can grow a cash crop and bring it in and sell that from. The school can use it. Like I say, multi-use. Anything we can dream up that people can make a living. If it's a flea market on Saturdays to get $1 moving. Street dances, heritage festivals, concerts. It'll have a pull-out stage in it. Well, we got the thing designed to seat about 160 people, and it'll seat 200 outside, and there'll be some outdoor seating too. I think if we can get something moving, something to grow on, we might create a little bit of way to live, make a little extra money. If we don't try, we're not going to know. Like I say, we have about $330,000 to put on this project, and we're out looking for $100,000. A lot of money. But if you go through some of these analysis, some of the cost figures on it, this thing will pay for itself. What we're using is what people are doing now on the side of the road or at a farmer's market. I think last year, I've got a table in the other packet. We had 51 rentals of property counted this building. And up the health department, really a couple spaces up there. For 51 vendors, but they couldn't put on their vending of one time in the month. You know, we can do 4 weekends a month. We've got 27 that travel to other counties to save on a regular basis. I mean, as far as actual 27 folks here that I think these local several arts and crafts, whether it be vegetables, fruits, are traveling to different counties to sell this stuff. Clay County now, they purchase the stuff. The county buys it themselves. Farmers Market sent an ag officer a list that he needs people growing carrots this year. Everybody knows to grow carrots. And they truck it themselves. They add on to the buying process and sell it themselves. It's a guaranteed market for it. Is it going to be big? I don't know. Make it big. It's according to people want to work. I don't know. But have we got it to offer to make a living, partial living, piece of a living, make $50 to pay the fire bill? We don't have a facility. I mean, this is the facility for Graham County. Churches want to put on a benefit. If they can't get to school, there's nowhere else but here. It's really not big enough. I think this thing will be big enough. But, you know, I know times are hard to look at it. And we want to do a joint venture. Let's work together and try to grow something. And that central hub, I think once we get it started, it's unlimited what we can use it for.
Builds on the revitalization of the downtown. Like you said, we need to start that somewhere. And a successful outdoor facility and indoor pavilion would certainly be a real jump start in that direction, I think.
I tell you one thing that we want to do in this thing. Any office that you want to put in, that would be great. When it comes to tourism and agriculture, I think we should be sensible. People can know, they can come in and say, hey, what can I do to make $25? What products sell? What is actual buying? What will they come and get? They told us last year they would come to Graham County and buy 2 days a week, Wednesday and Saturday. I'm a farmer, can grow a little, buy $50 worth of gas to get the action. You know, you beat your problem. So our kids, Clay County, Churchill County, now they're ag show to people in facilities. They've got 75 kids in one county that's growing hairseed, vegetables, flowers, and greenhouses. Last year, I think the county done 15 greenhouses. Does that sound about right? 50 on that green. There were 50 turned in, you know, that people didn't have no, I mean, they could do it, but didn't have nowhere to go with that product. So there were 50 in 3 counties gave back. But they don't cost you anything. They don't cost you time to live. Up to you. If you want to work, you want to make a living, go for it. But we can provide a place to let them make that living. I guess what we need to try. Go ahead and read up on that. Look at it. Get back going.
Thanks, Mark.
Thank you.
Anybody else need to make a public comment for the end of the hearing?
So I make a motion that we do close the public hearing at this time.
Just want to clarify a couple of points. Swain County budget is not lower than our budget. The budget for the year, that showed up in the 2014 audit for Swain County, just in the general fund, was $19.3 million. And I do want to make the comment that some of the growth in the budget, as I said earlier, the percentage of the property tax as a percentage of our budget line with the general statute that was passed 2 years ago, and forgive me if I can't remember the name of the statute. I think it was Senate Bill 433, but don't quote that. That had to do with consolidation of the ESS and the health departments, that also required that we keep the health department budget at the same level of appropriation as the 2009-10 budget appropriation. So that increased our budget. And like I said earlier, all of the capital outlays we had to do to increase our budget, as well as a $250,000 increase for vans for transit, which is grant funded. All of it. Every bit of that was brought forth in the PowerPoint that was presented 3 weeks ago. And I just wanted to reiterate that. And I did want to make that point that Swain County's budget is not lower.
No, you know, and I would just, I do sit on the cemetery board, and I will tell you that I have never worked with anyone who's more conscientious about the money that they spend than that group of people right there.
Statute that was adopted,
Seven.
that required them to.
Contracts, I didn't discuss that again in the closed session, please.
You'll go through your amendments, Becky.
Sure. These are just our year-end amendments. These are the least amount of amendments I've ever had to do. Budget amendment number 18, and most of these I don't even think are going to be necessary, but I always like to give myself a little wiggle room because there's always some bills that come in right at the end of the year. The largest area of that, something that I should have corrected during the year, was when we refunded the bond or refinanced the bond. And I should have done a budget amendment on this then, because it's all part of the proceeds on the bond. It's $50,000. The rest is just related to just cleaning up some accounts within each of the individual departments. The total amendment, which I'm thinking is probably more than it ought to be, is $104.5, but I don't have to get rid of that by my auditors. That's the general fund. Budget amendment 19 has to do with the revow. We budgeted last year for $10,000 in expenditures. We've spent right at $12.5. We've got a few more bills to pay, and these have to do with the appeals from the revow and some old appeals. So I would increase our contracted services and pull it out of fund balance of $6,500. Budget amendment number 20 is just the other side of the amendment I did last week that has to do with transferring money out of the 911 fund for salaries. And that's just transfers to general fund, and actually I could have pulled it out of revenue, but I pulled it out of fund balance for $10,000.
We have a motion to approve this.
I'll make a motion that we approve amendment 18, 19, and 20.
That personnel policy amendment dealt with the new pay plan that the sheriff's department is still in with the 14-day cycle. That is the only change that I made in that personnel policy amendment.
And this is on, this year is on for the sheriff's department jail.
Yeah, we had to implement that 7-day plan, and it needed to be implemented in the overtime provision.
Which the sheriff already thought that it was been. Have a motion to have this be our personnel policy. Whatever.
I'll make a motion that we approve this amendment addressing the FLSA 207K exemption relative to the sheriff and department and jail.
director came by my office this afternoon, and I need to make copies of his analysis, and I left it on the desk. But, since we purchased the truck, including this bill, whatever we decide, we will have spent almost $15,000 on the truck
For repairs.
for repairs.
And when did we purchase that?
2012, so it's 3 years old.
It's got about 50,000.
Right, what?
About 50,000. And it's been so regular, it's been running. Year for the last while, about every 3 weeks.
No warranty on that particular part.
Yeah,
It's been under warranty.
no, I think the only thing that they fixed is that builder house and the busted tire. They was first saying they did what done.
Right.
And that was
What is it?
2012.
Well, it's always been pretty well policy, or something, so I make a motion to fix it.
We also, we'll vote on this whenever it tires up this next time. We might already be looking for somewhere else to send besides back where it's going.
Is that road quality where it's going?
Yeah.
Okay.
Worldwide,
It's in what's it been,
ain't nobody got no way of checking stuff on it. Nobody got a program.
was it the garbage truck or the tractor?
It's the new garbage truck.
Does everyone that we would purchase have that same contraption on it, or air filter, or whatever it is? Or is there a possibility of
The air
replacing
filter.
it with something that works?
Is it the red one?
No, this is new line. I think Donnie's suggestion was if it tires up again, we might already call down state city. Will they lock them on at 99 instead of downstate? I think what is it, 99? But he said they never had a problem, I don't think which they can give much. Anyhow, we got a motion to pay to fix it.
I'll second the motion. We're gonna have another.
All in favor?
I think whoever, Don, King, Greg, one needs to talk to that about it.
Yeah, I think it's about time to send Mike a unsatisfied letter.
Absolutely.
Unsatisfied of the drug, unsatisfied of the service we've been given from down there.
Definitely, that's it.
We might as well do it for part-time.
I want to see it, pop one, and say,